There are stories buried inside hospitals that never make it to the light. Stories whispered between nurses on smoke breaks or shared in the dim glow of a break room at 3 a.m. But some stories, the truly horrifying ones, aren't spoken at all. They're remembered in silence, in the heavy stare of someone who saw something they were never meant to see. This is one of those stories. It was supposed to be an ordinary night shift, just a janitor doing what janitors do, mopping floors, emptying bins, keeping the hospital clean. But somewhere between the East Wing corridor and the abandoned surgical ward, Brian stopped being alone, and what followed left him unable to sleep, speak, or step into a hospital ever again. If you ever find yourself in a hospital late at night and you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around, because that's how it began for him. The night the dead decided they were not done. My name is Brian. I used to work the night shift as a janitor at hospital. I wasn't anything special there, just the guy who cleaned the hallways when everyone else was asleep. And honestly, I liked it that way. The quiet, the empty corridors, the feeling that the whole world had shut down and I was the only one still awake. I don't know. There was something comforting about it. It wasn't a fancy hospital. It was old, built in the late 50s, with paint that always seemed to peel no matter how many times it got repainted, and hallways that echoed every footstep just a little too long. The kind of place where the ghosts of the past didn't feel like metaphors. I worked there for almost 3 years, mostly in the West and North Wings. But on weekends, when staffing was low, I'd get assigned to clean anywhere they needed me, including places no one liked going, like the East Wing. The East Wing used to be a surgical unit, but they shut it down after the fire. People said it wasn't that bad of a fire, but you could still smell the smoke in the walls. And the thing about that wing was, the power didn't always work right. Lights flickered, doors jammed, elevators would go up and down on their own. Maintenance said it was just old wiring. But the nurses, especially the older ones, they said something else. They said that wing was never empty, even after they moved the patients out. They said some of them never left. I didn't believe any of that. Not then. I was just doing my job. Clock in, mop floors, rinse drains, empty trash bins. Nothing strange, nothing unusual. Until the night they put me on full rotation of the East Wing. The night shift supervisor told me it was temporary, just for the week. A week? That's all it took. 7 nights to destroy my entire life. The first night didn't start out strange. It was quiet. Too quiet, honestly. Usually, even during night shift, you'd hear something. Nurses talking at the station, the elevator dinging, someone coughing down the hall. But the East Wing, it felt dead. I remember pushing the cleaning cart down the corridor. The wheels made this squeaking sound that bounced off every wall. It almost sounded like footsteps, I started in operating room 3. It was one of the few rooms that still had power. The overhead surgical lights were still bolted into place, pointing down at the table like they were waiting for someone. You ever look at a room and just feel like something should be there? That's what that room felt like it was waiting. I was wiping down one of the stainless steel counters when I heard it. A whisper. Very soft. So soft, I thought maybe it was just my mind wandering. It sounded like someone saying my name. Ryan. I froze. I didn't move for a full 10 seconds, just listening. The room was silent again, and I told myself, I'm tired. I haven't slept well. It's just my imagination. So I went back to cleaning, but then I heard it again. Brian. This time it came from the hallway. A voice, not a whisper. Someone was calling me, or trying to. I walked to the door, looked out into the hallway. Empty. But the air felt wrong. Hospitals always have this sterile smell. Antiseptic. Bleach. But suddenly, I smelled smoke. Like burnt skin. I blinked, and the smell was gone. I stood there for a long time, just listening. And that's when I heard it. The sound of a hospital bed being rolled down the hallway. I stepped back into the room, but I didn't hear footsteps, just the bed. I told myself again, old building, loose wheels, drafts, gravity. But that didn't explain the voice or why the sound stopped right outside the door. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I just stood there, gripping the handle of my mop like it was a weapon. And after a minute, the sound slowly rolled away. No footsteps, no person, just the bed. I tried to forget about the voice, and the bed, and the smell of burning skin. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, maybe the chemicals from the cleaning supplies. So by the second night, I forced myself to act normal. I put in my earbuds, played music, louder than I should have, probably. Anything to drown out the silence. But here's the thing. You can't drown out something that wants to be heard. It started happening more. Little things at first. A door I knew I closed would be open. A light that was off would be on. My cleaning cart would be further down the hall than I left it. I kept thinking, maybe I bumped it. Maybe I forgot. I wanted it to be my mind, because the alternative scared me. On my third night, I stopped in front of the old surgical recovery ward. The windows on the doors were covered with tape and brown paper, but I could hear something inside. A beeping. Slow. Steady. Like a heart monitor. But that wing hasn't had power in years, and heart monitors don't run without power. I got closer, pressed my ear against the door, and when I did, I heard something else. Someone was breathing on the other side. Slow, struggling, wet, like a person in a hospital bed, right before they die. I should have called someone. I should have reported it. But I didn't, because part of me thought I already knew what I would find. I lifted the paper covering the window, just enough to look inside. And I saw nothing. No patient, no bed, no equipment. Just an empty room lit by a flickering surgical lamp that should not have had power. But the breathing didn't stop. It was still right there, right next to my ear, as if someone was standing on the other side of the door, breathing into me. I stumbled back, nearly fell. The hallway looked longer than it should have, like it was stretching. And someone was standing at the end of it. Not moving, just watching. I blinked, and they were gone, like they had never been there at all. It was the 5th night. I hadn't slept. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that breathing. So when I got to work, I already felt worn, hollow, and that's probably why I made the mistake I did. They had me clean operating room 6, the one closest to where the fire started. I don't know why, but the moment I opened the door, I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. The room smelled like burned metal, and something else. Something sweet. If you've ever smelled a person's skin burn, you'll never forget it. I turned on the surgical lamp. It flickered a few times, then stayed on. The light hit the operating table, and for a second, I thought I saw someone lying on it. Not moving, just there, a shape, a body. I told myself I was hallucinating, but then I heard the monitor. The monitor was turning on by itself, and the lights in the room, every single one, started flickering. The door behind me slammed shut, hard. I dropped the mop, and the breathing started again. I didn't want to turn around. Every part of my body told me not to, but I did. Someone was standing there, not a ghost, not a shadow, a man. Burned, skin peeling, meat showing through where his face should have been. His eyes were gone, but he was looking at me. I know he was. He took a step forward, and I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Just smoke. And then he grabbed me. His hand was so hot, it felt like it was melting through my skin. I smelled myself burning. I felt the skin on my arm blister. I tried to pull away, but he leaned in close to my ear.
We never left.
I don't remember how I got out of that room. One moment I was in there with him, and the next, I was on the floor in the hallway, gasping for air. The door to operating room 6 was open, and the lights were off, and there was no one inside. But my arm had blisters, real burns. That's when I knew this wasn't in my head. Something was inside that wing, and it knew my name. After that night, I stopped pretending. I knew what I saw. I knew what I felt. The burn on my arm was real, but I needed to know why. So on my last shift, I went looking for answers. Not from doctors, not from nurses, from the people who had been here the longest, the ones who didn't need to look at a map to know where the old fire doors used to be, the ones who remembered the smell of the building before the paint, before the renovations, before the denial. I found her in the cafeteria, an older nurse. Gray hair in a loose bun, wrinkles around the eyes, but the kind that come from pain, not laughter. She looked at my arm before I even said a word. I asked her, what happened in the East Wing? And she just stared at me for a long time. Then she said, "You shouldn't have gone in there." I asked her again. I told her I needed to know. And finally, she told me. The fire wasn't an accident. Everyone always says that. Electrical fault, equipment failure, the easy answers. But she said the fire started in operating room 6 during a surgery. A patient woke up while they were cutting him open. He was under anesthesia, but something went wrong. He felt everything, and he panicked. They tried to hold him down. He knocked over the cauterizing unit. The heat caught the oxygen line, and the room went up. They didn't get him out in time. He burned alive on the operating table. She said he was conscious the entire time. His name was Michael Harlow, and here's the part that froze my blood. He didn't have any family, no friends. No one claimed the body, so they left him. Not buried, not cremated, just stored in the East Wing, in the dark, alone. I asked her why. Why didn't they move him? And she said, because every time they tried, the lights would go out and something would start screaming. And then she looked right at me, right into me, and said, "He still thinks he's on the table." I realized something then. He wasn't haunting the hospital. He was waiting for someone to see him, waiting for someone to hear him, waiting for someone to remember him. And I did. I remembered him, which means he remembered me. Brian never finished his final shift at. When the morning staff came in, his cart was found in the middle of the East Wing hallway. The mop was lying on the floor. The bucket was still half full, and the door to operating room 6 was open. They called his phone. They checked the bathrooms, the stairwells, the loading dock. No sign of him. Not then. Not in the days after. Not in the weeks. He was simply gone. The hospital removed his employee file, assigned his shifts to someone else. People stopped asking questions, because hospitals don't like questions, especially about ghosts. But sometimes, late at night, when the East Wing is quiet again, you can hear something. A bed moving, very slowly, as if someone is still looking for help. And some of the night staff say, if you stand in that hallway long enough, you'll hear another sound too. Brian. They say it doesn't call just once. It calls until you answer. Because the dead don't want to be remembered. They want someone to stay. Someone who understands them. Someone who knows their pain. Someone who can't leave.